So Jim is going to teach us about killer listing presentation, even if you're a new agent. And I'll tell you one thing, today I was on a call and he talked about farming. If you're going to farm, you got to get a listing. So I'm going to pass it over to Jim. Thank you so much, Jim, for being here.
Okay. Yeah. Listen, everybody should get an introduction like that once in their life. Okay. Yes. We're talking about listings. In the chat, you guys, drop in the chat. Let me know who here has not done a listing presentation. Who here has not pitched a listing? Anybody?
In the chat.
Kyle has not done one. Okay. Who else? Joseph has not done one.
Pretty much
Jamie.
the
Okay.
majority.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Good. This is good. Good. Who here has done one? Oh, all right. Ashley, look at you go. Matt, I know you're an animal. Matt got his license at noon and he was signing a listing like around 1:30 the same day. Amazing. Matt's like, well, maybe not exactly.
You're funny, Jim.
All right. Yeah. So the presentation today, you guys, is designed to give you what I'm hoping will be a fundamental understanding of the shape of a listing presentation. I'm gonna tell you something about listing presentations. If you talk to agents who've been in this long enough, what you'll find is a listing presentation can be a bit of a pursuit. What I mean to say is listing presentations are as unique in many cases as the agent that is presenting them. However, I would submit that every listing presentation, no matter how you do it, ought to have certain common elements. And I'm going to go over those today. All right. I can tell you that, shoot, man, a year into this business and at almost 200 listing presentations, I was still fine-tuning it. In fact, I can tell you that I was told something once that I thought was very interesting. If you are, let's say you make products for pets and you make dog collars, for dogs, that's your product. I can tell you that you could make a case that that listing presentation, that's the product you're selling. This is kind of where you trot out and you show the product. Essentially, this is what you're saying is, here's what I can do for you. And I'm going to walk you through all of it. Okay. All right. I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to watch my time here. Make sure I got my, don't you love it? Your screensaver on your phone, it always goes off the minute you need to see the screen of your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a thing?
It's a
and
thing.
then if you're old, you shake it and that doesn't help anything. All right. Introduction to listing
There's
appointment.
not very many people that are old on this call, except for one.
Easy. I'm so old, I had an AOL email address at one point, just saying. Okay. All right. I want you to think about the appointment in 3 simple sections, friends. Before, during, after. Before, during, after. There is stuff that goes on before the appointment. There is stuff that goes on during, and there's stuff that goes on after. Before, during, after. I want you to think of this like this is a bit of a roadmap. It's a process. Each of these sections have different elements associated with it. And as you go on in this business, right, you will begin to assemble, iterate, and improve each of the elements. Okay. So what we want to talk about now is before the appointment. I'm going to say something about before the appointment. In so many ways, listings many times are won and lost before the appointment is ever gone on. We always think of the listing appointment as being in the house, but the truth of the matter is that listing appointment starts the minute you set an appointment. All right. Here are the elements of what you do prior to the listing appointment. By the way, Tanya, you're recording this, is that right? Yes. All right. So obviously take notes. but if you feel like you missed something, don't sweat it. You can go back and watch the recording. These I would call the 5 main elements of prep for a listing appointment: a pre-listing packet, a pre-listing survey, creating a CMA, which is a comparative market analysis, prepping your listing paperwork, and adjusting the listing presentation to any of the specifics you know you will encounter when you go on the appointment. I'm going to start with the pre-listing packet. Essentially, the pre-listing packet is a printed version of the listing presentation itself. What I'm telling you is, don't sweat this. I'm not going to spend any time on it in this presentation. Just know that you will want to develop a pre-listing packet so that when you set the appointment, that pre-listing packet goes out first. In the pre-listing packet, you can put all kinds of information: who you are, what you did before real estate, what the company is, and market information. Don't sweat this. The part that I do want to focus on is this right here. Because even if on your next listing appointment you don't have a pre-listing packet, if you do a proper pre-listing survey, you will be miles ahead in that appointment. All right, so let's talk about a pre-listing survey. So here's the thing I want to say now. Before you go on the listing presentation, you want to make sure that you gather as much information as you possibly can before you go in. You want to gather as much information as you possibly can before you go in. Here's the other thing about the pre-listing survey, right? When you take it, and if you do it in a professional manner, right, it will demonstrate a very high level of professionalism to the client, because it's going to show the client that you actually take this quite seriously. All right, I'm going to share my screen back again here. So here's the purpose of the survey. The main purpose for you, the agent. You're gathering information, but there are 2 critical things that you want to know. By the way, you guys, this goes for buyers and sellers. You want to know why they want to sell. Sometimes you hear that the word we'll use is motivation. And you want to know, when do they want to sell? You must know both. It is important. Now, listen, you guys. I coach agents, right? Professionally. They hand me checks and I coach them, and they will complain about a seller. And then I will ask this question. And these are guys that sell a lot of houses. Well, why do they want to sell? And they'll be like, and I hear them fumble around for the answer. What that tells me is they don't quite know. So what I'm telling you is the purpose of this survey is to find out why. Now, here's the thing. Lots of people would like to sell their houses. Lots of them have great reasons, and they can articulate them. Hey, my wife's about to have a baby and we are out of bedrooms, so we need a bigger house. My last kid just graduated college. We don't need all these bedrooms. We need a smaller house, right? I'm so old, I can't go up the stairs. I need all one floor. These are very compelling reasons. But if they don't have a timeline, they may not be a seller yet. So you need to find out why and when. And in the market that's coming, you guys, where we may see, because interest rates will rise and the market's going to contract, meaning it's likely the market's going to yield fewer transactions next year than compared to this year, I would say knowing when is actually more important. Because when you know the timing, you know who to focus on. You focus on the people whose timing is the shortest, and then you work backwards to the people who have the most time. I know lots of agents working very hard for people who don't have to make a move for months and months and months and months. And then they miss the people who need to make a move tomorrow. So you don't want to make that mistake. Why and when? Why and when? Why and when? You should be able to give very simple, direct answers. If I were your coach, why do they want to sell and when? They're having a baby, Jim, and they need to be out by June. Perfect. Okay, here's a listing law. I call these listing laws. This is huge. By the way, this works with your spouse. Logic makes people think. So you can present a well-reasoned, well-supported, well-articulated argument to someone that you want to do something specific, and you can do that, and they'll be like, huh, you're right. And they'll do nothing. It is emotion that makes people act. So I'm not saying there's no place for logic, there is, but a move, you guys, is a very emotional situation. I'm going to give you an example. I went on a listing appointment. Beautiful house. I was the third agent in, and I was competing. So I knew there were other agents before me. I've been through this enough to know that the emotional piece is important. But many times, these folks that I was pitching were older, and I knew that I went in thinking they wanted to downsize, because that's what they kind of said to me on the phone. I couldn't quite get any further, right? So we were talking, and I said, well, when you move, where are you going? And the woman said to me, I want to go to Arizona. And of course, I think, yeah, right, because you want to get away from the winters, right? And she said, no. My daughter lives in Phoenix, and she just split from her husband, and she needs me to be there to get my granddaughter on and off the school bus. And I remember, and I kind of rocked back in my chair. I went, oh man, this is not about selling the house. This is about finding a solution so that she can be in Arizona to take care of her grandchild. And I asked her, I said, well, what's the first day of school? And she said, it's the day after Labor Day. And I was meeting with them in mid-June. I'm like, so what you're telling me is we have less than 90 days to get this house sold. And she goes, yes. So everything I said from there on out was, look, I think we need to do this because I want to make sure that you are there to get your granddaughter on and off the bus. And you could see her going, yes, yes, yes. So when I say it's emotion that makes them act, that's what I mean. And I want to suggest to you that every single person you will meet with ought to have an emotionally compelling reason similar to the one I gave you. If they can't articulate it, one of two things is happening. Either A, maybe you need to work on your skill to help uncover that, or perhaps there's not enough intrinsic motivation to go through the pain of moving. And you, the agent, as you do more and more of these, you'll get better at making a proper assessment. Are you following me here? By the way,
work with the motivated. Work with the motivated.
Work with the motivated. Can you see my screen? Did I share the right screen?
It says listing law.
There you go. All right, good. By the way, this works with people. How many have kids? How many have made a logical case that your kid should do this? And they're like, Dad, you're so smart. I'm not doing that.
Unless they're
you say,
teenagers.
you should do that or else I'm going to kill you. And then they go, oh, well, all right. Then they do it. Logic makes them think. Emotion makes them act. Don't forget. All right. If you have been with me for any period of time, you know that this concept, I think, is central to being a good real estate agent. It is central to being a great listing agent. This is where you can assess somebody's timing and motivation, right? When you meet a person or a seller, in this case, they live in one of these four quadrants. Your job is to assess which quadrant they're in. If somebody is in, so, and this four quadrant exercise is based on the reality that we as humans either move away from pain or toward pleasure. We move away from pain or toward pleasure. And if the pain isn't very great, we don't move. If the pleasure isn't very great, we don't move. Right? So if you meet somebody who's in positive present, meaning they don't have a lot of pain, yeah, things are good. They will never take action. A really good way to test that is if you ask somebody, hey, if you're still in this house a year from today, is that okay? And if they go, yeah, positive present, not enough pain. Or they might be in what we call negative present. They are in some pain right now that they're trying to alleviate. We just moved to town. We're living in my parents' basement, and my wife and my mother do not get along. So what you're saying is, can you be in the basement 2 months from today? Oh no, Jim. Oh no, because somebody will be dead. It'll be my wife or my mom. Okay, great. That's a negative present. People who are in a negative present, they will take action. A positive future, right? So in the case of the lady who wanted to go to Arizona, I asked her the question, what will it be like when you put your granddaughter on the bus her first day of kindergarten? And that woman, she smiled and said, oh, Jim, it'll be amazing. It'll be amazing. She had this vision of a positive future, and the emotional force of that caused them to pick the right price, to do everything I told them to do. People will move if the promise of a positive future is strong enough, or a negative future. In many cases, people will take action because there is a negative future they want to avoid. Here's an example. I had a seller. Jim, I need you to come over. I have to list my house. What's going on, Fred? I've missed a mortgage payment, and I know for a fact I can't make any going forward. I lost my job. So what are you telling me, Fred? Buddy, I got to get out of this house. I got to get out of this house now. He was in pain at the present, but there was a negative future this seller was trying to avoid. He did not want to go into proper foreclosure. What he wanted me to do was see if I could effect a short sale, which wouldn't damage his credit as much. You follow me there? So when you're talking to people, I want you to, I can tell you, if you're smart, and if you're on this call, certainly you're smart, I would make something up, print this, and put it on your wall. In every conversation you have, every conversation with somebody who's a prospective buyer and seller, you want to become an expert in assessing which quadrant they're in. And then the ninja skill is to move them from one quadrant to the next. Have you ever worked with a buyer who's just not buying? You've shown them, I'm on my 87th house. Okay, well, clearly they're in positive precedent, dude, or else maybe you haven't asked the right questions. Jim, they won't lower the price on the house. Well, either the pain is not great enough, or the promise of pleasure in the future is not compelling enough. Something's going on there. All right. So logic makes them think, emotion makes them act. Here are the 4 quadrants. Here's how you get to this. By the way, do you see this is all the pre-work going in? You want to win this listing. And one of the big ways you're going to win this listing is you're going to understand what the situation is with your seller even before you step foot in. We're going to have this as a resource available to you, so you'll be able to get this file from Thrive, and I'll make sure that you can get that here with the next day or so. This is the survey that I used for literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of listings. So, and here, watch this line of questioning. Please tell me a little bit about your home. And then be quiet. You're going to get a great sense of these people. People love to talk about their houses. When people talk about their houses, they're essentially, you guys, talking about themselves. So you want to listen. What improvements have you made? This is important. Sellers are always going to want to point out improvements. You want to get a sense of what the improvements are, what they may have cost, and how valuable the seller thinks they are, because you may have to deal with that when you're on site. How long have you lived in the house? This is crucial. Good reasons to know that. If they've lived a long time, they may have more equity than others who've lived a short time, right? But if they've lived longer, there may be a larger emotional connection to the house. So you want to kind of be up on that. What are the positive features of your home? This is where you let the person brag on the house. This is important. By the way, you really want to listen here, because you want to make sure that when you walk in, you want to know the stuff that they think is awesome. Because if you're smart, you'll walk around and specifically compliment those things. It's like telling somebody their kids are good looking. What are some of the negative features of your house? All sellers, if they're reasonable people, know that some stuff isn't perfect. This is really important. because you want to get a sense of what they think are negative features. This is important. Well, my neighbors are a little loud. Well, the fence in the back of the yard really needs to be replaced. Well, the roof is old, right? You want to let them say that stuff out loud. Hopefully they're reasonable. This will give you a really good indicator. May I ask why you decided to buy this house? Again, this is really important. This helps you understand what they love about the house. All right, moving. Oop. May I ask why you're moving? Ask the question, why are you moving? I would sometimes, you guys, I would couch the question this way. Wow, the house sounds amazing. Why on earth do you want to sell it? Sometimes I found that was a little less sharp. They'll give you a reason. And then this is a great question. What's important about moving to you? What's important? What's important? When you ask the question that way, what's important to you, that takes them immediately into an emotional state. And we know emotion makes them act. You want to make notes on this because you may be referring to that in the meeting. Ultimately, what will the move do for your family? Now, listen, I don't know. Does anybody, you can hit me in the chat. Does anybody have a drunk monkey going, I could never say that. I would never say that. If the drunk monkey is telling you that, what I love about the drunk monkey, the drunk monkey is really accurate, just in reverse. Everything it tells you not to do, that's how you know that's the thing you should do. When the drunk monkey says, that's stupid, I would never say it that way, that you're like, thank you, drunk monkey, I'm going to say it just like that. All right, continuing on. How soon do you need to move? Simple question. How soon do you need to move? What is the perfect time frame? If I sell your home in the next 45 days, would that pose a problem? Do you see how we're trying to vector in a little bit here? What's the timing, right? How soon do you need to move? They may go, oh, you know, we're not in a big rush. Well, what's the perfect time frame? Oh, the perfect time frame would be, you know, we can get it sold this summer. Okay, great. What if I sold it in 45 days? Would that be okay? Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. Well, now you have a sense that they do want to move and a little sooner than later. Here's the question. What will happen if it's not sold by then? Big question. Well, I'm kind of screwed because my new job in Tulsa starts fill in the day. Or, you know, we're fine. So all I'm saying is do the questions, listen. Okay, property value. A big portion, we're about to go over this, in the listing presentation is you are going to have to suggest pricing. Okay? I have found that it is really advantageous to have a clear picture before you walk in what the seller thinks it's worth. I know lots of agents, especially new agents, who walk in and just say the price. They may not necessarily be wrong, by the way, right? Problem is, if you just say the price and you don't really know what your seller thinks is the price, then it may go over like a lead balloon, right? Have you ever said the right thing the wrong way? Anybody? Am I the only one that seems to be like a varsity level player at saying the right thing the wrong way? Anybody? No? Well, what I can tell you is, in a listing, ladies and gentlemen, you want to avoid that. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Scott. Scott is raising his hand. One honest man. Thank you, buddy.
Michelle's honest too.
Oh, there we go. All right, good. All right, so first, and I love this question. Zillow says your home is worth. What do you think about that? And you guys, people say all kinds of stuff. They're like, yeah, there's no way my house is worth that. Or that I'm shocked because my neighbor down the street sold his for 400 and mine's better. Oh, okay, interesting. By the way, don't comment, just listen. What do you feel the current value of your house is? You just ask them. Right? They say whatever they're going to say. Depending on how they answer that question, the next question is great. When I see you, I mean, realistically, how much do you want to list your home for? Do you have a feel for that? And they'll say, now some people will say, well, I prefer not to say, because I want to hear what you have to say. And I would go like, I get it. I mean, is there a number though you feel like, look, I'm not going to go below this number? They'll likely give you a number, and the very least you know, Here's their bottom line. It may have no basis in reality. All you're trying to do is just get a sense of where they are with pricing. Okay. What would you like to net from the sale of your home? Right? Because as you guys know, it's never what the house sells for, it's what they net at the end of the day. That net profit, by the way, it's important to ask. It's not here, but you'll find it's natural. I got it. That net, what's important? Are you going to roll that over into the next purchase, or what's your plan there? You can ask these questions. If you ask them with intention, with energy, right, with professionalism, they'll answer. Is there a certain net you need in order to sell your home? Oh, do you have a mortgage? What's the balance? Is there a second mortgage? Ask them. Ask them. By the way, it's a good place where you can find out, well, actually, I haven't made a mortgage payment since June of last year. Well, now you know that house may not be listable. Okay? This is really important. I learned this by hard experience, not asking this question. Are you planning on interviewing any other agents for the job of selling your house? I've not asked that question. And then I get there, I do the whole presentation. They love me. They love me. And they won't sign because they have to interview other agents. So if they say yes, it's okay. Then you ask a question like this. Oh, that's great. Who are you talking to? And you ask it just like that. Oh, that's great. Who are you talking to? As you do this more and more, what you're going to find is it won't be uncommon that you'll be regularly competing with a small group of agents, and you will get to know how it is they do their presentations. And if you can know ahead of time who they're meeting with, and if you know the agent, you can prepare ahead of time. Okay. And then this question: what qualities are important to you about a real estate agent? Ask the question. By the way, you're going to hear lots of things. Most of them, you're going to hear, well, I want somebody to be honest. Well, I want somebody experienced. Well, I want somebody who really knows the market. Those are usually the things that you're going to hear. All right. Now you've gone through the survey. By the way, if you notice, you may be on the phone 30 minutes. I've been on the phone for an hour doing the survey. I can tell you this, done well, when I walk to that door, many times they already feel like a friend. Okay. Now I want to confirm the appointment. What questions do you have before I arrive? Let them ask their questions. I've only spoken to you. Are there any other decision makers? If this person is married, if the spouse is not there, it is an exercise in futility. Right? So you want to make sure that all the decision makers are present. I love this next question, you guys. If what I say makes sense and you're comfortable and confident I can sell your house, are you planning to list your house with me when I come out? Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, I guess we'll have to see. I totally understand. I guess what I'm asking is, if you love the marketing plan, if you feel really confident I can get you the number that you're looking for, is there any reason why you wouldn't list it with me? No, I don't think so. Great. So now I've got timing and motivation. I've confirmed, I know the details of the house. I know whether or not they're interviewing other agents, and I've identified that all the decision makers are going to be there, and I've even gotten them to already pre-close by saying, yeah, Jim, if it makes sense, I'll list with you. Okay. So that you know, our meeting will only take about 30 minutes unless you got a lot of questions, which is okay. Is that okay? Great. Boom. That's the seller survey. I'm gonna pause here for just a minute. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask about the seller survey? No such thing as a dumb question, but I'm just gonna pause for.
I do have something to add, Jim.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So This, I will tell you guys, I have worked with, and I have a lot of friends that are listing agents and just agents in general for lots of years. And until they actually used a script like this, they didn't have the confidence to go into listings. And it is very uncomfortable, but you don't want to skip any of those questions. Have it written down. The other thing is where you keep this, right? So the biggest thing is I tell people, take a photocopy of this, put it in your albums, in your phone, like real estate albums, put it in a Google Drive, have a yellow pad in your car at all times, because people are going to call you when you're driving, dropping your kids off, when you're at the grocery store, and you're going to need to pull that pin out and you put them on speaker, and you literally should pull up that copy and ask every single question. Do not keep this at home on your computer. It needs to be the most handy thing that you have, including your buyer surveys. Can I get an amen?
Amen. Afshin, I think you signaled you had a question. And you're muted.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to know, like, for example, I call expireds, right? So
Yeah.
when I call them, so usually I feel like when you are talking initially, you don't have that kind of relationship where they will answer all these questions. I saw that when I met them, I actually found out more, like all the questions that you said, I found out the answers for all these when I met them, rather than on
At the
phone.
property.
Yes, at the
Yeah.
property.
All right.
And
So yeah, so there's a couple ways to handle that, right? So in the strategy for expireds, you're right. Many times speed to getting in the house is critical, right? However, I would still recommend if they're typically how much time will elapse between the time you set the appointment and the time you go in the house?
I mean, it depends, but I would try to make it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done this before where I will say, listen, I'm going to do a fair amount of prep just because I want to really make really good use of your time. Do you have an extra 30 minutes where I can ask you some questions specifically about the property? It'll help me better prepare. And generally they'll say yes. Generally they'll say yes. So I would encourage you to still try it. Or even on the phone, they've set an appointment, right? You can go right to, I'm going to get right on this. Do you have maybe 15 more minutes so I can ask you a couple more questions just so I can make sure that I'm prepared for you? And if they say, I'm really on my way out, can we do it another time? Great. What works for you? I got tomorrow at this time or this time. So I would say, don't give up on it. Don't give up on it. Now there's a fallback here, and I'm going to get to that. So Afshin, put a pin in that because you can do a version of the survey on the property. So we'll get to that in a second. So good question. Who else? Anybody? Anybody? All right. All right. We're gonna continue on. All right. So now, let me share my screen. All right. So that's before the appointment. Okay. Now let's talk about during the appointment, right? This is a listing law. This is huge. I can just tell you that just because you've never been on a listing appointment does not mean you can go out there and you can't go out there and take listings and compete against highly experienced listing agents. You absolutely can if you understand this listing law. Be, do, have. If you want to have what you want to have, you got to do what you got to do. But before you can do what you got to do, you got to be. We usually have this backwards. We think of it this way. I got to do stuff so I can have stuff. And once I have this stuff, that will define me and I will be. I encourage you to flip that script. I want you to imagine yourself as a top listing agent, the kind of agent that people always list with. And you always sell their house for the price that they picked, and they are super satisfied with your whole approach. So I want you to be the listing agent. As you think of yourself as the agent, you will naturally begin to do what listing agents do. And if you do that, you will have what they have. I'll give you an example. I got licensed in 2013, you guys. So not that long ago. One of the very first listings I took, probably the second or third, it was an expired listing. This was back in 2013 in Western New York, where the market actually favored the buyers. So there were a lot of expireds at the time. I was calling them, getting my face kicked in every day. Yes! This guy said he would meet with me, right? And remember, I'd been licensed for exactly 8 seconds. I was, in fact, the least qualified real estate agent walking around with a license in my pocket. I remember thinking, okay, I've got a listing appointment. So guess what I did? I put on my suit. I sent out my pre-listing packet. I did my CMA. I prepped all my listing paperwork. I put it in my leather briefcase because that's what I figured a top listing agent would look like, right? The meeting time was at 2 o'clock. And trust me, friends, I was knocking on that guy's door at 2 o'clock. And he opened that door, and what he was looking at was my version of what a top listing agent was. And we did the whole thing, right? I went in, we did the tour, we did the table. I asked him the question based on what you see here. Do you want me to list the house? And just as I was going to pack my bag up, because I figured he was going to say no, he went, yeah. I practically pooped myself. Yeah, that's right. I couldn't believe it. Now, I signed the listing paperwork, which I barely could do, but thankfully I had highlighted all the places I need to fill in. I take the listing paperwork. I'm stumbling over myself because I can't believe I just took this listing. By the way, this house had failed to sell for a year, and I was the third listing agent. And if you could have seen what was here was the drunk monkey. Here's what the drunk monkey was telling me. Dude, what are you going to do? You have no idea what you're doing. What are you doing? What just happened? What are you going to do with this house? What are you going to do? Drunk monkey just punched me in the back of the head. But I was celebrating. Get this, you guys. I go to walk away. He says, hey, Jim. And I'm like, yes. He walks towards me with his hand out. And when somebody walks towards you with their hand out, what do? You reach and you shake their hand, right? And he looks at me, and I can tell his eyes are wet. And he says, can you promise me you'll sell this house? And I said, yes. And ladies and gentlemen, I sold that house. I sold it. I sold it. I had exactly 8 seconds of experience. I succeeded where 2 other very experienced agents had not, right? There are probably a couple of reasons for that. I think they priced it wrong, right? And I really spent a lot of time working on that particular portion of it. But I tell that story to say, you guys, when I replay the game film on that, for me, I was being the listing agent. And so I was just embodying that. I tell you that to encourage you. Be the listing agent. They will work with you. They will. Yeah, man. When I shook his hand, I was like, oh no. Oh no. All right, be do have. Okay. In the house, you guys. In the house.
Kevin has a question.
Yes, Kevin. I thought you were just high-fiving. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. Nice to meet you. Question for you. When you go on a listing appointment, are you always prepared to give a listing price or an idea of a range? Or do you basically
I go to a house always with one single intention: to list this house.
Okay.
To list this house.
Do you give a price right off the bat?
No.
Okay. I never do. I always wait and I say, we're going to have a second appointment. We're going to do the comparables together when we list the house. So
put a pin in that. Have you taken listings in the past?
Many, yes.
Okay. All right. And that two-step approach works for you.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Very, very, very much so. I don't give prices out unless they are going to list with me.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
So
they don't get a price out of me. And that drives
now-
them nuts.
if you guys notice, remember how I said listing appointments can vary based on the agent. The two-step listing approach is common, and there's some good strategy in that. The first is all about seeing the house, building rapport, getting to know the people, maybe talking about some general market forces, going off and then coming back, right? My particular approach was I wanted to go one time if I could do it. One time, meet him, tour, sign the contract, and move on. However, a two-step approach, the question was, I can tell you when I used a two-step approach, Kevin, is when I asked them prior to the meeting, are you going to meet with anybody else? And they said no. When I got to the meeting and I found out they were going to meet with somebody else after me, then I made it two-step, because what I wasn't going to do is give them a price. And I wanted to make sure that I'm always the last guy in. So what would happen is they would say, oh, I got to meet with Freddie Mercury. And I'm like, freaking Freddie Mercury. I know exactly what that guy's going to do. Right. So here's what I'd say is, oh, that's amazing. Well, listen, this is so great. When are you meeting with Freddie? Oh, tomorrow. This is going to work out perfectly. I've seen the house. Let me do this. I'm going to go home and do my homework now and work up some pricing for you. You meet with Freddie. And then why don't you do this? Once you meet with Freddie, I'll come back and then we'll discuss the pricing. And they'll go, perfect. Then I say this, can I ask one favor? And they say, why, yes, Jim, you can. And I say, Freddie Mercury, do I have your commitment that you won't list, or Fred, you won't list with Freddie Mercury before you meet with me? And most people would go, oh, Jim, of course. So here's what I know. Freddie Mercury's going to come, he's going to work his tail off, and he's still going to get a no. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to close them. Because usually by that time, they're tired and they're just going to sign with a guy they think is coming. Yes. I'm saying, so all that to say, do you see the strategery on this a little bit? All right. Good question. Well done, Kevin. That's good. All right. I'm going to go to share the screen. Here is what I would consider the agenda once you're in the house. I call this the door, the tour, the table, the close. The door, the tour, the table, the close. The door, the tour, the table, the close. You want to run this meeting. You want to press this agenda. You want to remain in complete control of this whole thing. By the way, this way, it never goes off the rails, and you make sure that you get to everything you want to get to, and it demonstrates the kind of confidence that typically people are looking for in a listing agent. So let's talk about the door. The door. The door is so important. I said the same thing at the door every single listing appointment. Tanya already knows what this script is, I'm sure. Hi, Fred. I'm Jim Gray. We had an appointment at 2 o'clock and it's 2 o'clock. And I'm standing there in my suit and my briefcase and my gray hair, and I am on frigging time. To all of my millennial friends, childhood over. You have to show up on time. May I say, it's crazy. I've gotten listings before just because I showed up on time. By the way, this also is demonstrating, this is a little bit of neuro-linguistic programming technique. It shows them that you're trustworthy. You set a time, you made a commitment. It's a small one, but it's important, and you kept it. And you point it out in a way that isn't, you're not self-aggrandizing. We had an appointment at 2 o'clock and it's 2 o'clock. You reach out and shake their hand if you feel that's appropriate. Now, here's what happens next. You step into the doorway. Here's what I always did. Would you like me to take my shoes off here? Just want to, I'm kicking off the conversation. They'll say what they say. Oh, Jim, yes, thank you. Or no, keep them on. I go, great. I go right to this before anybody else has a chance to speak. Why don't we do this? I'll take the stuff down to the kitchen table and then we can take a tour. Can somebody point me to the kitchen? And they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, Jim, this way. And either A, they would point and I would lead the way, or I would follow right in the kitchen. I put all that down. I put my stuff down and I turn and say, okay, who's going to give me the tour? What I liked about this question, by the way, is it gave me a sense of who the likely decision maker was. Usually the guy, if it's the man who goes, I'll give you the tour, what that means is it's likely he's probably the one that I have to convince first. So listen, guys, you want to just be forthright. You want to have intention. You want to have energy. You're making eye contact, right? And you are running the meeting. All right. So Fred says, I'll do the tour. Now you do the tour. Now we're doing the tour. Here's the purpose of the tour. You want to build tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of rapport. In real estate, my fine friends, people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. First, know, like, and trust. So this is a great opportunity to get to know these people. By the way, I spoke to many of you when you came to EXP and when you were kind of, earlier in your process. And when I asked many of you why real estate, I would say 90% of you said, well, because I really like people. This is one of those great moments where you can actually get to know them in a very genuine way. They're going to be showing you their house. And you should know something. You're not really looking at their house. You're looking at their life. They're showing you their life. You as a real estate agent get to see things and know things in a way that most people in their world don't exactly get to see or know. You're going to see pictures of relatives, of children. You're going to see toys and furnitures and objects. You're going to see all kinds of things, right? Some things you can't unsee once you've seen them. However, you're going to see lots of things. And this is your moment to really build a relationship. Let me give you some do's and don'ts on this tour. And trust me, probably Kevin has made some of these mistakes too. I've made every one of them. Here are the do's. Ask questions. Ooh, that's interesting. Can you tell me about that? Right? Let them tell you about the house. People love to talk about their houses. Compliment them. Compliment them. Oh, that's lovely. Now, what out? Did you make that? Oh, wow. The yard is big, isn't it? Oh, looks like this bathroom is remodeled. Did you do it? Oh, yeah. Oh, that's lovely. Compliment them. Don't, and by the way, don't be fake. I'm not telling you to be fake. What I am saying is find the good and point it out, right? Keenly observe condition. You may find that they're going to ask you questions. They'll point out something. Yeah, that window, my son put a softball through it and he's cracked the whole casing. And I don't know, what do you think, Jim? Do I need to replace that? This is not the time to have that discussion. But what I will say is, yeah, it's a good question. Let's put a pin in that. Let me kind of see everything, and then I think we can talk about it. Because I don't want to get into that. I don't want to have any discussion about condition or price in this. This is all about asking questions, complimenting the seller, getting a sense of the condition. Here are the don'ts. I've learned this by hard experience. Don't criticize anything. Don't do it. Don't. You probably have noticed something about me. Sarcasm is kind of my thing. What I learned on listing appointments, don't be sarcastic. Even if you think they're on the same page with you and you're kind of a little repartee, interplay, just be careful. So all I would say is don't criticize. Don't discuss the market. Hey, Jim, what do you think of the market? Market's good. Ooh, that's lovely. What is that? Well, what do you think the price is? We're going to discuss price in a minute. Oh, that's amazing. Did you build that? Don't discuss the market. Don't discuss the plan. Don't discuss pricing, right? Don't say anything negative. So stay in control. Now, the tour of the house, you guys, it depends on the agents. Sometimes agents will spend a lot of time here. I can tell you that you can spend too much time, right? My personal feeling was I wanted to get in, get ink on a contract, and get out in under an hour. That's what I wanted to do. And typically I knew that I didn't want to allot much more than 15, 20 minutes to the tour. I also knew that the longer the tour went on, there's sometimes a point where the conversation could just go wrong. So I just want to, I personally wanted to kind of keep an eye on that. But the tour is important, mostly for rapport, mostly for information gathering. Okay. I'm going to keep moving through this. All right. Once you're at the table, you finish the tour, now you're at the table. Okay. Here's what you do at the table. This is the table agenda. You're going to review the seller survey. By the way, Afshin, for you, this might be the place, if you haven't had a chance to take the survey prior, you can do a modified, shortened version now. I would say that it's important. It demonstrates care and who among us, it's a felt human need to be heard, right? So you want to go back to the survey. By the way, in many cases, you did the survey with one spouse, but now you're reviewing the survey and the other spouse is there. And you say, now the reason you want to move is because you want to go to Montana. And the one spouse goes, what? No, we're in witness protection. Why didn't you tell him that? Oh, right. Yes. And we're in witness protection. Oh, okay. So you may find out more stuff there. You're going to present your marketing plan. You're going to present your pricing. You're going to close. You're going to sign paperwork. You're going to go over the next steps. You're probably going to spend most of your time in presenting the plan, going over the pricing, and closing. If you were going to spend time, if you were going to spend like an unlimited amount of time, this is where you would spend it. And not on the marketing plan, not on the pricing, on the closing. Diana Kokoska, who's a world famous coach, I had the good fortune to train directly with her on a number of occasions. She was a top listing agent. It was often said of her, the reason that she had such an amazing close rate is because she just stayed at the table until she got a yes. So it's something to think about. All right, so I'm going to go back here. All of these elements, you guys, this presentation today is not designed to go as deep as could be gone right now, all right? You know about the survey. I'm going to talk about marketing plan, right? How do you market a listing? This is one of the great, I think, just one of the great strengths of EXP. You have a technology company behind you. I wish I had this when I was doing it, right? So even though you don't necessarily have experience, what I can tell you is experience in the seller's mind is secondary to a great plan. If you can show them a great plan, right, they fall in love with the plan and you will beat experience every time. I did, and I know it's true. So, yeah, people fall in love with the process. So even though you've perhaps never sold a house, what I'm telling you is don't worry, have a plan and present the plan. I'll give you, if you were going to present a marketing plan, I'm going to give you some resources now. This slide was published by the National Association of Real Estate Agents. And basically the question is, where do buyers start their searches? And the number one place, right, is the internet, right? The use of the internet. The most likely buyers, they start there. Well, guess what? You're at a technology company. The company you're at specializes in generating leads on the internet. So if you were going to talk about a marketing plan, you could have a 17-point marketing plan that talks about how you are going to conquer social media with this listing. Do you see this list here? I don't even hardly know what it says, but you know what I did? I went and said, marketing plan using KV Core. Boom! A dozen or more marketing plans came up, right? So what I'm telling you is, begin to do your research. Look inside of KV Core. KV Core has so many resources here, okay? I can tell you, actually, as I was doing this, we will begin to curate some training around how to put together the marketing portion of the listing presentation. So keep an eye out for that. But the thing I want to tell you is, you Google listing marketing plan, you're going to get lots of choices. And then what I would recommend is pluck the stuff out that you like, that you know you can do, that you feel strongly about, put it together in a presentation and show them the plan. Okay? Once you show them the plan, right, you move on to the pricing. Creating a CMA, a comparative market analysis, is another section of expertise that you will need to develop. I'm not going to go over that here. The reason is every market is different. Every MLS is also different. So here are the main resources to really begin to work on your CMA skills. You can take that address down. Theclose.com is a great site for realtor resources. And they have actually a really nice primer on how to create a good CMA. At EXP, if you go to your broker staterooms, the state level brokers routinely do trainings on how to do a CMA using your MLS in your market. And much of that training is recorded. So I would say go to your broker stateroom and ask if they've got recorded training, or check the state level training calendars to see if CMA training is on that calendar.
I do have some specific KV Core trainings that I can send out for CMAs.
Great. Yeah. See, by the way, you can create a CMA inside of KV Core too. So take a look at that training. Call your local real estate board. Generally, real estate boards on a regular rotation have training classes on using the MLS, and typically in conjunction with the MLS training is how to create a CMA. Okay. And then the last thing is, if you have a mentor, ask your mentor. I'm going to say that for all the people that I've spoken to that came to EXP, this is where.
Can you go back to that slide really quick? Because I was screenshotting it.
Oh yeah. For all the people that are that I recruited, this is where you are creative, resourceful, and whole. It's up to you. You are the cavalry. The resources do exist. Can I tell you the first pre-list packet I sent out? You ready? I Googled pre-list packet. I bought somebody's pre-listing packet. I adjusted it to reflect me, and I sent it out. I'm not saying you should do that, but you can. You can also Google all of this stuff. You're going to find lots and lots of resources. Good news is you got Tanya as your coach, and you've got masterminds. So there's lots of places you can go to get input on this, right? But as far as CMAs go, I would say that these are probably the best places to go. Also, we're going to create some training around how to present. There's a lot of opinions on this. A lot of it is good. A lot of it is not as good. We'll show you what we think is a good approach. All right. You presented the CMA. Now you're at the close. Fred, based on everything you see here, would you like me to get this house sold for you? I'm an advocate for always asking for the sale, no matter how poorly it's gone. And I can't tell you how many times I'm like, they are never going to list with me. So Alice, based on what you see here, you probably don't want to list with me, do you? Oh, yeah, I do. I'm like, what? Yeah, sign here, press hard. Next thing to do is sign the listing paperwork and go over the next steps. Here would be my one bit of advice. I, as a regular practice, would never go into a house without listing paperwork on my briefcase. The caveat is if you're doing a two-step close, then you might do it differently. But for me, always had listing paperwork ready to go. And if somebody said yes, Fred, do you want to list with me? And they said yes, I signed the listing paperwork right then. I never said, I'll send the listing paperwork over to you, because here's my story. Fred said, why, yes, Jim, I'll list with you. And I was tired and I was hungry and it was 7 o'clock at night. I'd worked 40 days in a row. My wife was mad at me. So I said, okay, Fred, how about this? I'll bring you the paperwork tomorrow. Fred's like, yeah, great, Jim. And I'm like, it's great. It's a done deal. I drove to Fred's house the next day at 5 o'clock. As I was driving up, I'm like, I think I recognize that car in the driveway. Oh, yeah, that's Jenna May's car. Yeah, I compete against Jenna May. Jenna May was in the house having him sign her listing contract. And she was so happy to see me as I came out. She's like, oh, hey, Jim. Fred was like, oh, Jim, hey, I know I saw him with Jenna May, but good news, you guys are both Keller Williams agents. And I said, oh, so good. So happy for you. And I'm like, that's it. That's it. Only happens once. So that is my admonition. If they say yes, have the listing paperwork ready to go, get it signed. All right, I'm going to pause it here. I know that's a lot to process. I think we're just about at time. I'll hang out for a few minutes. I mean, if you have questions, I would be happy to take those. So let me know if you have questions about listings or anything in general. Take a couple minutes here. Yes, Afshin.
Okay, so you said that we should spend the most amount of time on the closing.
Yes.
So what else can we say besides just, asking for the business? Is there anything else that we should say?
Oh my goodness, yes. So have you've met with expirers, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you asked for the sale generally at the end?
Yeah.
Okay. So that would be the first.
Mm-hmm.
Depending what comes out of their mouth, that's where the close can be a process. And Matt, I bet you've run into this a little bit, right? Based on what you see here, would you like to list with me? Well, I really have other agents to interview. Oh, okay. Let me ask you this. Let's just say you didn't have those appointments. Do you feel comfortable that I could sell the house for you? Oh, yeah, Jim, absolutely. So what I think I hear you saying is you just, you feel like it's polite to meet with those people before you sign with me. Well, yeah, okay. Well, how about this? Why don't we sign this paperwork now? I will call them and let them know that I've listed the house. This way they don't have to take time away from their family. But I'll let them know that if they have a buyer, I'd be happy to split the commission with them. How does that sound? Oh, Jim, that's amazing. Right? Jim, I have to think about it. Great question. Or I really appreciate that. What do you feel like you have to think about? What do you think? Well, I just don't feel like I'm ready to make a decision. Fred, I owe you an apology. You do? Yeah, I do. Usually when people feel that way, it's because I've not done a great job of explaining. What didn't you hear that maybe you'd like to hear? So do you hear I'm going on and on about this?
Yeah.
Tanya, make a note. I think we need rebuttals. So that's what I'm talking about. When you ask for the sale, if they don't say yes unequivocally, then an exchange typically will happen where they're either giving objections or conditions. You're addressing the objections, you're addressing the conditions.
And Jim,
Yeah.
David Hill is coming on Friday from 12 to 1. And the training is how to turn your no's into yeses. And he is one of the top listing agents in the country. He has a book. He's a Grant Cardone coach. He's a success coach from 12 to 1 p.m. Same time, same place.
So actually, that might be good to go because he makes his living on objection handling.
Yep.
Have you ever had who here? I did it. I've asked the question. Based on what you see, would you list with me? And they go, no, I don't think so. And I'm like, okay. And I get up and walk away. Right. Matt's like, yeah, I know, Matt.
Saturday that happened.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Okay. So that's normally where if you're going to spend some time, Afshin, you want to now begin to work through getting to, why don't you want to, maybe I missed something. I've asked, well, what did you want to hear that maybe I didn't say? And they say, well, really, I don't like a 6-month listing agreement. And I've said, oh, so what you're saying is, if it was a shorter agreement, would you feel more comfortable? And they'll say, why, yes. And I said, well, how long would you like to list for? And they'd be like, well, I'd be okay with 90 days. I'm like, I stuck my hand out. I go, great, 90-day listing. Let's go. So they started with no, and now you're working through, is it no or is it maybe? So that's kind of what I'm talking about. So what Tanya just said, Ashleen, by the way, I think that's a great, that's a great suggestion. If you can make that training, that'd probably be good. Kylie, how are you? I saw you laughing at me. All right, don't think I don't see you. Any more questions? All right, you guys.
Wait.
Oh,
So while Jim was talking, I put together an email. You guys are all going to get an email. Check your email in the next 10 minutes. And guess what? Because you guys are all also wondering, great, I got a listing presentation, but where do I find listings? I literally have 6 or 7 listing series classes here. How to get 20 listings in 30 days, how to master listing presentation just like this, how to find listings, farming on a budget. It's all coming to you in 15 minutes. You guys, if you want to become listing presentations, you got to become that expert and that practitioner, because a lot of experienced agents aren't actually very good at listing presentations.
they're actually not. They're actually not. You guys, they walk in and go, I'm awesome. Sign here. And it works for them. This is why I'm saying, if you kind of have a process put together. Here's the other thing I want to encourage you. Take a breath. What you're learning now is central to your business. If it were easy, everybody would do it. You want it, you're striving for mastery. Mastery really doesn't require you to be smart or this or that, but it does require time on task over time. So talking with sellers, meeting with sellers, talking with sellers, meeting with sellers. I went on 101 listing appointments, you guys, my first year, and I only sold 37 listings. If it were an algebra quiz and there were 101 questions and I got 37 right, it would have been an F. I went 10, 12 in a row hearing no. So all I'm saying is, keep at it. You're doing the right stuff. Be, do, have. That's my parting shot.
I love it.
Right.
Okay, we got one last question.
Yes.
I'd just like to add to you, Jim, and just say to everybody that, practice makes perfect. You went on 101 and got 37. That's great. Once you get used to doing this, it becomes old hat. And you realize that when you walk in the door, you're not really there to sell or list a house. You're there to sell yourself. And when people believe in you and they like you, they're buying into you. Really, and then the other thing is, you're going to get some people that are very rigid, and you walk in and they're not going to be the nicest people in the world. And all they're going to want to do is suck the price out of you. And that's all you're there for, is to give them a price. And I've gotten in some arguments over the years where I would not give a price because I knew there was somebody coming in right behind me to list it that was a discounter or somebody like that. But they knew I was the expert in the area. So they wanted my price to use to give to their agent that they were going to hire. And when I got wind of that, I wouldn't give. And it's funny how more irate they get, then you really know the gig is up. So if people aren't nice and, it's give and take, then you got to get a feel for people. And that's the important thing is, you do your best. My favorite line is, if you don't trust me, don't hire me, because we have to work together. It's going to be a long it could be a long relationship, could be a short relationship, but no matter what, I want you to trust me. But if you don't, we're not going to be able to work together. That's key, I think. So
I agree. I love that. That's good. When somebody would press me on price, I'd be like, $1 million. And then I'd go right on. Tell me about that. Charlotte, do you have your hand up or are you just high-fiving?
No, I have my hand up.
Okay, yes.
Okay,
Charlotte.
I have a situation.
Yes.
I'm 99% sure I have the listing. They're refusing to sign until January because they want to make sure the kids are in the house for the last holidays and whatever. But because everybody's hearing through the market that house prices are going to start dropping, they don't have to move. They're moving like an hour away to be closer to their grandkids. So, I talk to them every few days. This has been going on for a couple of weeks. We are planning on listing first to second week in January. Do I consider them active live? I mean, I did meet them at an open house, and that particular listing agent went to them, did a presentation. They said they were working with me, but they haven't signed. They refused to sign.
What state are you in?
Georgia.
Okay, so there's a couple ways to handle that. You guys, this is really common. I would tell you how we would do that in New York. And the script went something like this. Well, especially in New York, they could sign a listing agreement with an addendum that said we weren't going to physically list the house until a future date. And then I would tell folks, this protects you. It means we're not going to list it until this date. But what this allows me to do is begin to work on getting the listing sold. So we won't put it on the market, right? And by the way, if you change your mind, we can rip the agreement up. But what it does allow me to do is begin to kind of get the marketing together so that when you're ready to sell, we can hit the ground running. So you might try a script like that. You may have to check in Georgia.
I did.
Okay.
I need something new because I'm from New York. So I know that spiel.
Okay.
My problem is in the South. I'm having issues with this right now.
Here's the other thing, Charlotte. It could be that if they don't want to sign, that could be an indicator that personally the pain is not high enough, right? So
Okay.
you may have to think about that. Remember this, they may be up in the pipeline. So the follow-up becomes critical, right? So it sounds like you're calling them on a regular basis. I would say
definitely.
that's going to be your best. That's going to be your best defense. Although I often like let me get to, if we do it this way, you don't have to list it. You can tear it up if you want to, but it allows me to get to work on getting the home sold just so we can go faster when you're ready. That seemed to get them over the hump.
It didn't, these people.
Okay.
They're really worried
what
about
that
the
tells
market.
me is what that indicates potentially is maybe the motivation is just not there yet.
Well, like I said, they're concerned about losing 10, 20, 30 grand if the market drops in January. Like,
Well, you
they're
can
in
ask them this.
finance,
Well,
so they're
yeah.
telling me this, and I have read some of that myself, but I don't necessarily believe it. And that's what I tell them. I don't.
Well, what are they
necessarily
going to
believe
do when the markets? What are they going to do when the market's even lower in March and then in April?
Well, they don't have to move.
Well, they're
They're moving out of
hey,
convenience.
Everybody, full stop. Did you hear that?
Okay.
Well, they don't have to move. Well, then there's nothing to talk about.
Well, they're getting older. They want to be closer to their grandkids and not miss things because the drive in Georgia, and especially Atlanta, an hour drive can turn into 2-hour drive.
Well, that sounds like your concern.
So.
It doesn't sound like it's their concern.
Well, no, that's what they told me. We've had numerous conversations over this. Numerous. Well, that's why I was asking, because I'm like at my wit's end. I don't know how to go ahead and pull it in.
So here's my advice. They're not ready. Just keep in contact.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm doing.
Good job.
If I may add, may I?
Yes,
Sure.
Mary.
Fantastic. Hey, Charlotte, I don't know how it is out there in Georgia, but one of the things that we could do out here in California is negotiate the time frame. So look, hey, I get it. You don't want to, move until January because wanting to have the last holidays at the house with the kids, which is totally understandable. I would be in your shoes too. And one of the things, why don't we get it on the market now? Right? Let's get the marketing going. Let's get all this stuff going. And when we do get a buyer, we can negotiate the time frame so that way we can get you the closing after the holidays and still keep the price now. So that way we're not worried about, losing the value in January and still being able to move out in January.
Yeah.
I'll give that a try.
Yeah, because you might ask, Charlotte. I have found that sometimes when I phrase the response with, "Here's my concern," Sounds to me like you're concerned about the value of the house going down. My concern is that whatever it's worth today, it's likely going to be worth less in 60 days. So it feels like if you're concerned about the softening value, we might want to get it under contract immediately. And then using Mary's suggestion, but here's what I can do. We can move the closing, we can negotiate a closing date out beyond the holidays. How does that sound? So maybe that's an approach.
I'll definitely give that a try tomorrow. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Mary. Look at that. The power of the mastermind.
You guys are
Thank
awesome. Jim, everyone's texting me already. They said, don't invite him back. We don't like him. Okay.
Dang it. It's the beard, isn't it?
Darn
All right.
it. No, they actually love it. I appreciate this. And you guys, Jim and I have some really awesome trainings coming. Jim's going to be hopping on to help train more. We have our workbook that we're revising for you. Like, we are so committed to helping you guys sell lots of homes in this next quarter and stay in this business.
Hang in there, you guys. You got it.
Thank you guys.
See you on the 25th, Jim.